Hello, it's Ted Bardy from the Ted Bardy Acting Studio here in New York City. And I received a question through TikTok, which I want to answer. So the question was, what advice would you give to an actor that is wheelchair bound? Because there aren't many roles out there that fit that description. Okay, so when I first received this question, I had to be honest. I was at first going to be inspirational and a pep talk. But look, the questioner, I think, is looking for real practical advice about this. And of course, I'm going to tend to use an actor who happens to use a wheelchair. I'm being politically correct, I guess. Who knows? But let's talk about it. First of all, FDR, one of the most important, one of the greatest presidents in U.S. history. He led this country through one of the most difficult times, the World War II and also the Great Depression. And he would never be photographed in a wheelchair. They made a specific effort to not have him ever photographed in a wheelchair or with crutches because the public wasn't ready to accept that. And today, unfortunately, the movie-going public, at least the business people, feel the movie-going public is not ready to accept that. I think things are changing, though, now. So if you're going to pursue an acting career and you happen to use a wheelchair, you've got to really work on your craft, really work on it, have a solid foundation. You want to bring as much humanity to any role you take on. And by bringing so much humanity to the role, I think and I believe that a lot of people will just forget about the wheelchair use. And to be honest, in film and television, often you're going to be in a close-up or a medium shot, so you might not even see the wheelchair that often. You know, I worked with somebody who was on a great important television show. I did a voiceover campaign on radio for British Petroleum, and he was one of the stars of MASH, the television series, and he had an issue with his hand. But he never noticed it. When I met him in the studio to work with him, it was very obvious he would move his hands, and I could see that there was an issue with one of the hands. Of course, I noted it, but it didn't cause any other problems for me. But you never noticed it in the TV show. And again, with FDR, a lot of people at the time didn't even know that he used a wheelchair. So that proves that using a wheelchair doesn't limit you really in any way. It only limits the public at large, and it may limit, not all, but some casting directors. So the invisible wall you have to break through is people's preconceived notions and their small imagination, their discomfort. And that's one of the things that might be changing. It might be evolving. It might be evolving. So what I suggest doing is what I suggest to all actors. Create the work for yourself, at least for your reel. You can find many people who are doing short films, or you might even be able to write it yourself or have a friend who's good at writing. You can create a 15-second or 25-second clip, a few of them, of you doing different roles with casting directors. And I was an assistant casting director, so I have an inside track on this a bit. Sometimes there's a discomfort with casting directors because they're worried about what the producers, what they've been hired to do, what they'll think. But you can break through that by auditioning for even roles where they're not asking for somebody who uses a wheelchair. But once again, you've got to have your acting technique really down, really a solid foundation, because you want to bring as much humanity to that role as possible. You want people to get lost in the humanity. So get your headshots, get 3/4 shots, show that you're using a wheelchair. Why not? If you use a wheelchair, audition for those roles where they're not specifically asking for somebody who uses a wheelchair. Of course, if they're looking for somebody using a wheelchair, definitely audition for those roles. The Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, they do have some kind of outreach. You can contact, if you're a union member, you should know about this, or contact the union office about outreach. Many times they'll be casting for something, and SAG-AFTRA will make an effort to get people who have what are called disabilities, if you want to call them that, into the room. But once you're in the room, you've got to really know what you're doing as far as your technique, as far as your foundation as an actor. You got to be able to improvise. And I wouldn't worry about the wheelchair as far as blocking, that's a non-issue. I mean, I'm shooting independent films in New York City with my former students now, and I don't have to worry about things like that. So once again, get your training. That's key. Get headshots or 3/4 shots that show the wheelchair. Why not? Put a reel together that shows some variety in the roles you can play. Comedic, dramatic, the bad guy, the good guy, the romantic lead. Get some of those. Put them on your reel. And how do you get a reel? Well, I've said this many times. The iPhones have really been so improved. And there's an app, the Black Magic Camera app, the Black Magic Cam app. You can download it for free. There's also Filmic Pro. I'm not sure if there's a free version of Filmic Pro, but you can download these, and they really take your iPhone or your Android phone and really will make it so much more useful as a cinema camera. You could also find a friend who has a cinema camera. Cinema cameras are much less expensive these days. So yes, some people in the industry, some, not all, do have limited imagination, but that doesn't matter. You don't give a damn about that. No expletives. You don't really care about that. You want to go in and do your job. You want to take the cold words from a script and bring them to life. That's your job. And it doesn't matter if you're using a wheelchair or not. So yeah, some members of the industry and the public will have blind spots. But great acting is one of the few forces that can change what the room believes is possible. So you want to be you, irresistible, undeniable. When you leave that audition room, the air leaves with you. When they watch your reel, when it's done, they have to take a second and think about it. That's my advice. Plenty of other people have advice for you too. But look, it's a tough business. We all know that. It's hard to get a job even if you're an actor who doesn't use a wheelchair. But what do? You can only keep knocking on that door. Create the opportunities. Don't count on just one thing. Okay, and if you want to know more about my online acting classes, you can go to actnyc.com. That's actnyc.com. You can find out there why we were named the best acting class, best audition class, best on-camera class, etc., by Backstage Magazine and Time Out New York. And I hope to be hearing from you soon. And please share this with other people who might want to find out more about the technique I teach. I'm rooted in the Sanford Meisner technique, but I've studied all the techniques, so I pull in a little bit from everything. Take care. See you next time. And keep the faith and stay creative.